Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing an Overwatch 2 Season 10 tier list, with the new season coming out. A couple people got tweaked. All in all, nothing too major, but I'm going to give my thoughts, my opinions on how I think the meta will go, or rather who, the best and the worst will be to play. I'm in Diamond, so I'm going to be focusing mainly on like the metal ranks. When you hit Masters, Masters GM, and all that, it gets different. So I'm primarily going to be focusing on the metal ranks, and yeah. A couple of things before we get started, though. One, I always take into consideration counters, just because, especially for tanks, if you are playing against the counter, you're at such a disadvantage that you pretty much just switch. Otherwise, you're throwing. So it's something to keep in mind when I start ranking people. Number two, same thing, with the disadvantage things. For some reason, this past season felt really, if you could notice when your team didn't synchronize well together. So going forward, I'm going to also focus on who I feel like plays better together. Like if you're playing Tracer Sombra, you might do better than like I don't know, Reaper Farah. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to take into consideration synchronization from the support, the DPS, as well as how the tank also fits into that. I already said I'm going to focus on the metal ranks primarily. I'm not no better than Masters, barely even that. So I'm not going to speak outside of my field. Also, if there's a hero, a very specific hero who's only good on a certain map, they're automatically going to just be considered a niche pick. They might, like Sigma, for instance, might be really, really good on Circuit Royale, but he might suck on more of the capture the point, brawly type maps or whatever. So I'm thinking more specific, like Roadhog with like Ilios Well. So like, that would be considered more of a niche pick, but just keep that in mind as well. If someone's like highly counterable, like for instance Reinhardt, if there's like 7, 8, or the entire roster is able to counter them, naturally they're going to be ranked lower than others, regardless of how their kit is, how good it is, how fun they are. It just doesn't really make sense for them to be ranked equal or above the people who are easily countering them. And then lastly, something really big with me, how well do they achieve their role? Like how good can Winston tank? How good can Hanzo DPS within his role? How good can Lifeweaver support his team and heal? So it's another thing to keep in mind. But alright, let's get into the video. Alright, first up on this list, we'll start with the tanks. So we got D.Va, right off rip. First thing that comes to mind, she's extremely mobile as far as the tank role goes, and you're going to want that as a tank. The ability to get in, get out, dive, so pretty good on that aspect, especially nowadays when the tank is taking the most damage, dying the most, whatnot, and being able to have that freedom to get out as you please is extremely useful. Her ultimate's pretty high risk, high reward. Kill potential is pretty high. You're extremely vulnerable when using it though, and I mean, with as many saves in the game as there is, it's not too frequent that you're going to get too many kills with it, but at the same time, you could, so it's still high potential in that regard. Also, if you kind of want to consider it, she has like a second life. So if you get demeched, you still have the chance to be saved, to get out, to live. Basically, you can still contribute to the fight. And then her remech, as minuscule as it is, it still has the chance to make some plays as well. So just another difference between her and the other tanks. I would also say D.Va has pretty good damage. Shotguns. The spread's not too bad at medium range, but mainly just use it at close range. She can counter a decent amount of the other tanks too, but at the same time, she also is pretty easily countered by every other role. So, take that as you may. But again, with her whole mobility thing and stuff like that, she can make up for it. And then her defense matrix also can absorb a lot of damage. So, take that as you may. Lastly, I'll just say like overall, she can counter a lot of tanks, but at the same time, Doomfist, Zarya, Roadhog, they can go to town on her, and they're pretty strong right now as well. So take that into consideration. And then as far as team synchronization goes, like she can synchronize pretty well with a lot of the other DPS and supports. Mainly if you're playing dive. So all together, I will be putting D.Va in B tier. Next up, we're going to be talking about Reinhardt. Honestly, not a lot to say about dude. He hasn't been good for a while, and that's not going to change here. Yes, slight mobility if you really consider charge that, even though it's highly telegraphed and easy as hell to counter him. I guess you could technically count that as CC, crowd control, because he can stop people middle, pin them, do a lot of damage, push people back, which also I guess would technically also count as a stun. I'm just trying to give him something here. Honestly, that's really all I got. I mean, he's tanky. If you play him, you're gonna feel like a tank, but you're also gonna blow up. So that's pretty bad. He's slow, extremely easy to counter. His damage is decent, but I mean, you gotta be close to give it, and you're not gonna get close enough with Reinhardt. So, all in all, you should just. Oh, there's no F tier on this. I just noticed. Well, we're gonna make that F tier real quick, and we're gonna put him on that. There we go. F tier. F. Buff my dude. Oh yeah, and they did just buff him, but it was just for his fucking ultimate. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, is pretty good, but it's just you can get pulled out, Zuzu'd out, and more. There's hella things that the support can do to counter and make your fucking ult useless. I mean, Zarya can counter it, Orisa can counter it. I don't know, Sid can block it, Ramatra can block it. There's just so many things in here. You're not hitting far with it, but there's just so many things in here that render his ult useless, so. Yeah, Reinhardt's F tier. Do not pick Reinhardt. Next up, got Roadhog, and honestly, I don't know what they. I mean, I know what they did to him, but I don't know what they were thinking with him. He feels, good as far as a tank goes. In a stream, but in the past, the tanks have been pretty shit on. But Roadhog's been feeling pretty strong lately. Granted, he has, a decent amount of counters against them. Even his counters aren't feeling as strong against them as they used to. So, he has a strong kit. Which gives him a lot of options as far as surviving, and that's pretty good again for a tank. You're going to want to be able to survive longer than everybody else, or at least the other tank, and he gives you a pretty good amount of options. He's unfortunately extremely easy to counter, but like I said, a lot of his counters, like Orisa Ana, with all the Ana nerfs, they don't feel as bad as they used to, so it's doable just because he does give you a lot of options as far as a tank goes. Against the other tank, but I mean, if you're getting countered by Orisa, Bastion, even Reaper, unless they have 2 or more counters, I would say switch off of them. But if you're going against one counter, honestly, he doesn't feel too bad. If they have if they have Malga, that can feel pretty oppressive. But honestly, at that point, it's kind of tipped in Malga's scale, but it could be a stalemate for a pretty good amount of it, depending on what your DPS and supports are playing. His ultimate, CC, his hook, it's a stun. Within that, they have plenty of options, plenty of things you can do with them, plenty of plays you can pull off with them. Last thing, he has, again, a high self-sustain. So, all in all, he's feeling pretty good. The question is, I'll put him B for now, above D.Va, because he is a counter to D.Va. So, yeah. All right, so next up we got Winston. Right off rip, really easy to synchronize with, especially if you're playing dive. So just keep that in mind. He's not going to go off and kind of do his own thing because he will die. With that being said, he is easily counterable. So again, if you do go off on your own, you will die. So don't do that. Highly mobile, which is why he's good in dive. He can hop in, hop out fairly quickly. It's on a pretty good cooldown, so that's pretty nice to have. Low damage. Don't really know why. I don't know why they haven't upped that even more. Some people say if it's any higher, he'll be broken. Personally, I don't really understand how. Maybe someone can explain that to me. It doesn't make sense to me because if he is getting oppressive, you can go Reaper, Malga, you can easily switch to 1 or 2 characters and completely shut him down. So I don't understand why that's a big scare for people. And then personally, I hate his ultimate. I think it's pretty weak, especially right now in Overwatch 2, with everyone being able to run away or be saved or stun, count CC. I don't really understand the usefulness of going primal and pushing people back. I also never can seem to juggle people in corners, so I don't know, maybe I'm just bad with it. Maybe I just don't understand how it's supposed to be used. But maybe you can let me know in the comments down below what I'm doing wrong. But all in all, I think he's pretty challenged right now. That's what my C tier is, challenged. I think he's pretty challenged. He could use some help, because if you're not playing dive, I mean, you're definitely not going to be playing Winston on defense. Um, and if you are using him for attack, like why aren't you doing a full dive comp? So I don't know. C tier for me. Next up is Zarya. When I was like thinking about things with Zarya, I really couldn't come up with much. So with that being said, that's actually one of the key points. I find Zarya extremely fucking boring. Very linear character. She has two abilities, giving someone a bubble, giving herself a bubble. Now, technically, within that time frame of having that bubble, you're like invulnerable. I also think it's a cleanse. Pretty sure it's also a cleanse. Not many people talk about that. Everyone talks about Zuzu, but Zarya's bubbles do essentially the same thing, minus the health regen. So yeah, she's a pretty linear, boring character. Her beam is pretty strong if you get it to 100. I also think the range is a bit much. Personally, I feel like the more damage or the more charge it has, the smaller it should be. Just because, I don't know, it feels, that just sounds like that sounds better to me. Like if you're doing a lot of damage, like she does at 100%, why is the range as far as it is in a game where you're playing against some tanks who don't really have mobility to run away? I don't know. This is definitely one of those I'm biased moments just because I like playing people like Sigma. At times they're recent because I'm forced to. And those characters are more considered countered by Zarya. So again, this is kind of one of them I'm biased moments. Yeah, I'm gonna put her in low C tier, or at least behind Winston, because Winston technically counters her. It is funny though because I feel like, you know what, hot take. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this just because it's easy. Sure, Winston might counter Zarya, but it's easier for a team to counter Winston. It's more easy for them to counter Winston. No, it's not. He has mobility. She doesn't. We're gonna do that. All right. All right. Next up, we have Hammond. He just got reworked, quote unquote. Really, all they did was allow him to give other people shields from his team, and then also to like retract on his grappling hook. And one of my issues that I had with him is that he's like, as far as team synchronization goes, if you're not all diving, he kind of is absent. It feels like from your team, so it won't feel like you have a tank. So by him giving your teammate shields, that's pretty good in terms of synchronization with your team. Other than that, pretty strong self-sustaining. Like I said, he does have those adaptive shields. He's able to get in and get out really quickly. Some of the best movement, if not the best movement in the tank role. He's able to get the health packs when he needs them. His ultimate isn't the worst. It's more of a area deniement type of ult. So, that's really specific in terms of when you would want to use it, what games you would want to use it. All in all, though, originally I had him in C, but for the simple fact of like his mobility, his ability to dive, pick off the back line, we're going to put him in the bottom of B for now. Just because, naturally these two counter him pretty well, so, yep. Next up we have Sigma. In a world of rock, paper, scissors, which is what the tank role has become, he's been a pretty solid fourth option in terms of a shield, as I'll say. Like, he doesn't really counter anybody, but he also isn't really necessarily countered hard by anybody either. So he's a pretty decent pick. He's been pretty reliable for all of Overwatch 2. So, he has decent survivability with the shield and the kinetic grasp. He has this CC with accretion. He's able to prompt. He's able to activate the universal health passive fairly easy, if you can cycle everything well. While he has high survivability, I also would consider him to have some self-sustain, and the fact that he's able to create overhealth. Accretion does double as a stun, so you can stun people out of certain things and interactions. My only issue with him, I would say, is his poke. He's more of a poke, and right now, poke hasn't been hot in a minute. It's either been dive or some sort of brawl. So, Sigma's he's not the best in those types of matchups, but he can still get the job done. His ultimate, high risk, high reward. I mean, you're up there, just free, but you could do some pretty decent damage if you could pull it off. Unfortunately, though, it is really easy these days to pull somebody out of it, or Immort or Zuzu, or the 80 other options that you have to counter his ultimate. So it has been feeling a little less impactful lately, but nonetheless, it still could be impactful. Just based on his overall consistency and whatnot, I'm just going to put him in A. Now, Roadhogs may give you a rough time, Divas may give you a rough time, but I feel as though there's enough options down within the support and DPS role to really shut down a Roadhog and Diva, and Sigma isn't as easily, countered in those roles. So for right now, we're going to keep him in A. Next up, we got Junker Queen. Honestly, not a lot to say about her. Slight mobility with Shout. Shout still gives your teammates over health, the speed boost, that's useful. With that, I mean, decent or good self-sustain, because if you do Carnage or you hit it with the knife or whatever, you get you get to heal. You get to heal based on the amount of melee damage you do, so that's pretty cool. She has pretty high damage for tanks, considering a lot of them don't do too much. Her ultimate, however, I mean, it's kind of like it's question mark for me, because while it does a lot, you get to heal a lot, you get to deny heals. I feel like there's so many cleanses and again, pulls, Zuzu, Zarya, but there's so many things that you can do to get out, cleanse it off of you. Also, it's pretty easy to stun her out of her ultimate before she pulls it off. So if you pull it off, good on you, but at the same time, it's so easily countered. Ultimately, though, I'm just gonna put her B tier. This is kind of hard because I definitely put her above Ball. She gives Diva a hard time, but I don't really think she's better than Roadhog right now. So I'm gonna put her right there. Even though the whole mobility thing and whatnot, I still think that I'm gonna keep it there. Next up, we have Doomfist. Definitely one of the harder characters, let alone tanks, to play in the game. So with that, his skill ceiling is extremely high. So, with that comes a number of challenges in of itself. I also think his floor is pretty high as well. So, you can't just hop in and play him, right away. Otherwise, you're going to be losing. You're not going to understand his movement and the kind of cycle in which you're supposed to be using his abilities. With that being said, for the average Doomfist player, he's easily counterable. Once again, majority of the tanks here. Unfortunately, though, he's pretty easily counterable by other tanks, DPS and support. So if you have even just one, you're going to be having a hard time. His ultimate's been buffed so much at this point that I honestly don't consider it too bad anymore. More damage, more healing. I'm not a Doomfist main, so I haven't been keeping up too much. But I think there's something with the punch charge too, or something like that. But yeah, he's been getting a lot of buffs because he's been underperforming. High mobility, one of the higher mobilities in the tank role, so that's a good tool to have. With that, he also has pretty good self-sustain, power block, the ability to get in and out of fights, disengage, re-engage. He also has some slight CC capabilities. His punching is a stun. Actually, I would definitely more than slight, because he has the ability to punch people off the map, punch them into a wall, punch them into a corner or whatever. His elbow drop, I guess is what you can call it. Pretty sure that stuns slightly as well, or slows down, so he has pretty good CC for a tank. All in all, if you know how to play him, he'd be higher up in here, but for right now, for the average, I'm going to put him right underneath Junker Queen, because he counters Diva and Ball pretty well. Next up, we have Ramatra. Ever since Malga's release, I would say I have been seeing a lot less of him. Just because when you're blocking, it's free game for Malga to be farming off of you. So I think literally just for Malga's existence, Ramatra has been started to be played less, which I think is kind of funny. Other than that, he has very, very slight mobility. He runs a little faster when he goes into I think it's Nemesis form, the big form. He's versatile, one of the more versatile tank options. He has a lot of options in both forms for things that you would encounter and different things that you would be dealing with. Good self-sustain. His power block is one of the stronger self-sustain abilities as far as tanks go. I feel as though right now his ultimate is still pretty strong. I would say it's good deterrent. Makes people run away or at the very least focus fire on you, which at times could be good. And then ultimately, I would say he's pretty good in most comps. again, that versatility thing. So as far as synchronizing with your team, I think he does that fairly easy. I think him and Sigma have like a pretty similar mindset in terms of, you know, the flow of the fight. You know, you're not necessarily countered hard by anybody, but you also don't necessarily counter anybody too strong either. Um, Either way, we're gonna put him in B, and I would put him above Junker Queen for right now. Next up, we have Malga. Man, this dude is fun. He is fun to play even now. Extremely high survivability. This dude can heal off of a tank like crazy. Slight mobility. You know, he has that charge. I've seen some pretty dope plays where people are like jumping across 2 points and things like that. So it's kind of fun and cool to pull that off. Really good damage, especially in the tank matchup. If it's a big tank like Roadhog or Diva or something like that, you know, you can just farm off them. Even from a good poke distance, like he still has pretty good distance or pretty good damage if you're poking. His ultimate is extremely fun to use. I think nowadays though you are dying a lot more within it than when he was first released. But I mean, at this point he's a completely different character than when he was first released in terms of what he's able to do and get away with. He stuns, so like, you know, his little charge at the end of it, you can stun and actually knock people down. There have been times where I've, you know, stunned like, we'll say like a Reaper out of his ultimate or whatever like that. It's hard to pull off, but it's doable. So it's another tool that he has. Yeah, all in all, man, I don't know. He's pretty good. He's a solid pick. If someone does go Malga, it kind of does force your team to change and reassess what they're doing and what type of picks they have. So for that, I'll put him in A tier. And last for the tanks, we have Orisa. You know, similar to Malga, you know, great survivability. Fortify is you know, it's been insane for a while now. She has the CC/stun, whatever you want to call it. You know, with the spear. Her little javelins. What the fuck? These ads are going crazy. You know, that javelin spin or whatever, you know, it's pretty good CC as well. You know, it pushes, it speeds you up, so she has slight mobility and of that. Good way to mitigate damage as well. Eats certain ultimates. Easy to synchronize with. I think that she can, obviously she does poke pretty well. I also do think that she is decent in Brawl as well as Dive. She doesn't dive, you know, like Ball or Diva, but I think she's able to get in pretty easily and pull out. So for me, when I think of her in terms of Dive, the way that she can consistently do damage while engaging and disengaging, and I think that that's pretty, I don't know, Dive centric. And then, like I kind of said, with all her abilities in the beginning, just really high self-sustain. Her ultimate is, you know, people are drilling on it, saying it's not the best, it's not too great. I don't think it's that bad. It does what it needs to do, either get out of the radius or die, essentially. That's what it is. I don't really have any problems with it. There's been times, or numerous times, where people still pull pretty big plays with it. So for all the crap that people give it, it's been working. So with all that in mind, you know, she's been pretty consistent for several seasons. She will be an A as well. I think that these two right here, you know, if you pick one, either mirror or pick the other, and I don't know, it depends on what your team is playing, but these two are pretty evenly matched, in my opinion. It's just like Malga can heal off Orisa like crazy, and then she does every now and then have the capability to stun him. I would say that it's kind of tipped more in her favor, just because it is easier to counter Malga with your supporting cast than it is with Orisa. So for now, we'll keep it like that. All right, next up, we got Cass, aka McCree. Now, before we do get this started, I want to mention that I also started this with the mindset of who can like utilize the DPS passive fairly easily as well, because it is such a strong passive, the strongest passive that we've really seen in the game yet. So I also kept that, just keep that in mind, that I kept that in mind while doing this. But first up, we got Cass. So nothing too crazy with him. He does decent, reliable damage from a good range. Roll is strong. They give him that buff where he takes less damage during the animation. So I think like you could like tank a pulse bomb Now, Magnet Grenade still locks people from using their movement abilities, and the tracking onto the range on it is still pretty good in my opinion. His ultimate, like even like I was playing earlier today, and I had a dude who he was on top of cart, and he popped it, got a 3K. So like high risk, high reward. People still can make plays with it. You know, you don't always got to look for that team kill, but you know, 1 or 2 picks will do just fine. And you know, on the off chance that you do get 3 or more, good on you. It is possible, and it is really satisfying when you do. With all that being said, I don't think anything too crazy about him. I don't think anything too poorly about him. He's pretty basic, so we'll put him in B tier. Following cast, we got Genji. Genji, high skill ceiling and floor, very very hard entry character, especially right now. So like I said with Doomfist, like that's going to be bring challenges in of itself. You're gonna get upset a lot if you start playing him and you've never really touched anyone else. You're just gonna be upset because you're not gonna feel like you're doing the right stuff. You're gonna feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're gonna feel like the game is harder than it should be feeling for you. He's easily counterable. You know, most of the beam characters handle him pretty well. Winston shuts him down. Extremely mobile, one of the more mobile DPS in the roster. You know, he can climb the wall, he can dash, he can double jump. Good survivability, like I said. He can dash, he can double jump, climb walls. He also has deflect, which is on a fairly decent cooldown. You can deflect a lot of stuff. You can even deflect Reinhardt's swings. Briggs mace, like none of that really makes sense to me, but hey, he can deflect it. The worst thing about him, I say, is his ultimate. Unless you're getting nano boosted, it is extremely easy to die during your ultimate, and you don't want to spend time during your ult deflecting. So that's just like something to think. You're going to be deflecting a lot during your ultimate if you're not nanoed, because you're just going to be getting shot at. You're going to be focused fired. So all in all, Genji's doing pretty bad right now. I'm not going to put him in F just because like really good Genji players do do some cool and nutty stuff with them. I am, however, going to put him in C tier. Next up, we got the other Shimada brother, Hanzo. Hanzo has decent mobility. He like Genji can climb walls. He has like that mid-air dash. That's about it. That's all he gets for mobility. He finally has a passive, you know what I'm saying, that he can actually activate, because the last one, man, it was like reload speed after an elimination. He doesn't reload, so that's pretty funny that it took him this long to change that. Pretty unique to him. He has, recon capability. It's the sound arrow or whatever it's called. You can see where people are if they're invisible, for in Sombra's case, or if they're behind a wall. So, kind of useful. I would say, I'd say that he has high kill potential, and I'd say high damage as well. The only thing is, if you're, it's hard to hit your shots, but that potential is still there. Headshot is bigger arrows, so like you would think in theory that headshots would be easier to hit with them. I still find that it is very difficult to actually do, but when you do, it does do pretty good damage. He is able to secure kills pretty fairly. The worst thing I would say for him, similar to Genji's, is ultimate. Dragon Strike is so bad. I don't know how they haven't changed it yet. Hopefully they are in the future, but it's like unless you're comboing with like maybe a Zarya, or unless you're trying to contest point, like there's just really no use for Dragon Strike, Storm, Dragon Air, whatever the fuck it's called. There's just really no use for it. So all that in mind, we will be putting Hanzo in low B for now. That might change. He might go to C, but for right now, we're going to keep him in low B. Not trying to beat on a dead horse or anything, but a lot of people will say, like, ever since they nerfed one-shots, Hanzo and Widow and whatnot have, like, lost a little identity, and I do find that to be true. His one-shot capability, I think, is gone completely. I think he might be able to, like, headshot, like, Tracer and Sombra, I think. But, like, all in all, like, they did really, in terms, neuter him as far as, his identity and what he used to be able to do. So, I just figured I'd bring that up because, I do acknowledge that and understand that. All right, next on my list here, we have Junkrat. Let's see. First thing, he's extremely spammy. I don't really think there's another character as spammy as him, aside of maybe like Zenyatta. But even then, he has a really unique way of approaching it. Extremely high damage, or rather just high damage, but it is somewhat hard to actually hit people with his nades these days. The range in which fights are typically taking place are outside of his personal range. Low mobility, but he does have the ability to like use your mine and propel yourself in the air. I've seen people do some pretty cool like flanks and whatnot utilizing that. His ultimate's not too bad either. He can climb walls. It's extremely loud, so it's not too hard to locate. I think the range in which it actually does get eliminations, or the range in which it can deal damage, I don't think it's too bad either. Really, the only thing going against him is just the range that these fights are typically taking place. They don't favor him at all. Regardless, though, him as a character, nothing really wrong with him. For that, we'll just put him in low B. I will put Hanzo above him just because, again, the range in which fights are typically taking place, and plus Storm Arrow, there's a better tool than Junkrat's ability to spam. So, yeah. Next up, we got Mei. What I will say is, if your goal is to isolate tanks or very low mobility DPS or supports, if those even exist, she's really good at doing that. So, the ability to isolate, really good strong point for her. Her ultimate is one of the best in the DPS role, if not the best. Nah, it's definitely not the best, but it's up there. It's definitely one of the top best. Great self-sustain, wall strong, cryo freeze is strong, and it heals you. And because of that, I'll say that she has pretty good survivability. The damage isn't too bad. Her range is close to long. Like she's pretty versatile in that regard. And as far as like team synchronization, I don't really. She plays decently well with most anyone. So with all that in mind, again, it just kind of depends on what you're trying to go for. But I am for right now going to keep her in A tier. Next up, we got Pharah. One of two flyers in the DPS role. Yeah, one of two flyers in the DPS role. Because she is a flyer, she is easily counterable. Many, if not all the hit scans, can deal with her fairly easy. There's also numerous supports that can deal with her, and a couple tanks now, so extremely counterable. Her ultimate, high risk, medium reward. I mean, it's like you're gonna die if you ult. Like you're just gonna die. It's a matter of how many people you can take out with you. Sometimes one, sometimes four. Anywhere in between. If you get a team kill with it, holy crap! Upload that to YouTube immediately. Extremely mobile, especially with that the horizontal buff that they gave her. She has horizontal movement and linear movement, or vertical movement. I'm sorry. Slight CC capabilities. She can boop people with her. I actually don't know the name of the ability, but she can boop people with her whatever the move is called. Last thing I will say though is like she is extremely oppressive with a mercy. If she has a mercy pocket, you absolutely have to counter her. You have to go hit scan, otherwise she's just gonna run the lobby. So that's just something to keep in mind. But with all that in mind, we are gonna put her in C tier above Genji because that matchup is just like a no-brainer. Following Pharah, we have Reaper. Highly mobile, highly survivable. Like he can teleport in, wraith out, wraith in, TP out. Like that's kind of the thing with him because he has shotgun, so he's supposed to get close to do his damage. With that being said, he does do decently, fairly, extremely, however you want to word it. He does good damage up close. I would even say at medium range, he's able to do fine damage. It'll shock you how many times you end up dying to a Reaper mid range. Minimum self-sustain because he has the whole life steal when he shoots somebody. So typically against the average tank, you can prolong that fight fairly long if it's like a one-on-one and you're with the tank. Oftentimes, you might even come out on top. I will say, however, his ultimate's pretty bad right now, just because again the amount of stun and CC in the game is kind of crazy. So they're clearly not going to reduce that, so they're going to need to do something with his ultimate because while that's more of a high risk low reward type of thing, because like you might get some kills, but if you don't get stunned, that'll be a godsend. So all that in mind, C tier. I just don't know if I think he's easier to make plays with than Genji is. So for right now, I'll keep him above Genji. All right, next up we got Bastion. I put a lot of thought into him because there's honestly so many places you could put him depending on where you're ranked. But ultimately I came down to like he's a tank melter. He's really good at melting certain tanks. He has a pretty large hitbox, which goes against him most of the time. His ultimate isn't really good at all, so you're going to find difficulty, making plays and actually getting an effective ult off. Some of the positives, low skill ceiling and floor, so like you can hop in and play him right away. You shouldn't find too much trouble doing that. His recon gun is pretty accurate, so if you shoot, I don't think there's little to no recoil or missing or anything like that at all. Like a bullet spread, like it hits every single time the same spot. Like ultimately, he just feels like a tank with the DPS health pool, and like I'll say with Echo later, like that doesn't feel good to be that big of a target and not have the health to compensate for being that big. So all in all, I'm gonna put him in the bottom of C, definitely below. Yeah, because these two counter him extremely well, and everybody up here I'd say does too. Next up we got Soldier, and honestly I don't have anything negative to say at all. Good self-sustain, good ultimate, good damage, good mobility, oppressive as hell with a mercy. I genuinely don't have anything negative to say about him at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and put him in A tier. Next up we got Symmetra, pretty niche pick. She's good at a couple different things and maps. So what I will say is her turns are pretty useful. They reveal the enemy's location if they hit them. Her ultimate's alright, I guess. It's a really big shield, good for defense, good to push in. You can angle it to get certain angles off. She's pretty easy to synchronize with if you're trying to do more like a bunker comp, which people don't do. She's pretty easy to synchronize with if you're doing more bunker comp, which people aren't doing too much these days, but it's still doable and strong if you're trying to hold a point. Because all in all, her teleporter, can give you an advantage on certain maps pretty well, but still pretty niche. We're just going to put her bottom of B for now. Next, we've got a personal favorite of mine, Torb. What I will say is his turn's really good. It's really good for getting that DPS passive going. He has pretty good reliable damage. I like his rivet gun. I like both versions. I like the shotgun and I like the medium range, long range variation, whatever you want to call it. So in of that, he has multiple ranges that he can shoot with and shoot from. His ultimate's a strong deterrent. I would say it's a little better than like Wrecking Balls, for instance, just because you can't destroy his. Good survivability with pretty slight self-sustain, because when you overload, you get that over health, and then you get the speed boost as well. So all in all, I think for right now, with how the past meta was and who's strong and who's not, Torb's a pretty decent pick. Depending on how your aim is, you could argue Soldier's better. For right now, though, I will say he's better than both of these two. So go ahead and put him in A tier. Alright, next up on the list we got Tracer. Not too much to say about Tracer. Really good mobility. Some self-sustain, with the ability to recall and regen some health. The ability to go get health packs is fairly to extremely easy with Tracer. Her damage is extremely well, especially when you're within the range, the appropriate range that is intended for her. Her ultimate's good to secure individual kills. I've seen some clips of people get like 2 with it, but it's pretty rare. She's pretty good at forcing the DPS passive on players as well, but with this meta, or the past meta, it's been pretty mobility and in dive and that aspect. So the only thing I would say is that you have to have some sort of mechanical skill to play her, but all in all, Tracer is definitely an S tier pick. Next up we got Widowmaker. I don't think too highly of Widow. Unless you can hit your shots, you're not going to be much of a threat at all. She has very low survivability. She's very easy to eliminate. I find her ultimate to be completely useless. Like, it's kind of cool to be able to see where people are, but when you play the game enough, you kind of get that game sense to typically see and like kind of sense where people are going to be. Even if you watch a lot of like good Widow players, they kind of already know the spots to be peeking at and things like that. She has some ability with grapple, but it's not enough to help her escape like a certain character, that certain dive character, which is typically which they go to handle Widows. And like I said, unless you're able to hit your shots, you're not going to do any really. You're not going to have any pressure. You're not going to be a threat from that long range. So, all in all, for the average metal rank player, right, I'm going to put her below Genji. Just because I feel like unless you can hit your shots, you're not going to get any value from Widow at all. And you're not going to have any fun because so many of these characters on this roster are going to be able to kill you. Once you start hitting Diamond and above, you start understanding the game a little bit more. You start understanding where you need to be placed, exactly when you need a player, what shots you should and shouldn't be taking. Then Widow, starts going to being above that. But, bronze to plat, things like that, I don't really recommend playing Widowmaker at all. So she's going to be in bottom of C. Next up, we got Sombra, who has arguably the best DPS ultimate in the game right now. Sombra has extreme mobility. She's extremely mobile. Her ability to isolate and pick off backline support, her ability to lock out abilities is all extremely strong, especially within this dive meta that we are coming out of and possibly going back into. She has no issue, activating and taking full advantage of the DPS passive. I've also found that considering how much ammo she has within a single clip, it's extremely easy to melt certain targets. It's extremely easy to synchronize with her. I really don't have too much negative to say, or really anything negative to say at all. She does have a pretty high skill ceiling, but the floor is decently low, so you can hop in and play her. You might have some trouble like early on or whatever, but eventually you'll get her down. She's not too hard to get down, but she also will be S tier. Next up, we got Ashe, and what I will say is I think pretty highly of Ashe. Like what you lack in skill to do with Widow, you can do decently well and fairly easy with Ashe. Ashe has good damage. Dynamite is really good at starting the DPS passive. Her damage just alone, like her ability to hit her shots, just is pretty easy for getting that going. Her ultimate's pretty strong too. As far as DPS ults go, I still think Bob in this 5v5 format is a nice sixth team member, if you may. And then I would say she has very, very slight CC, but her coach gun pushes both herself and enemies away. So she's able to reach high ground and whatnot with that. I really wouldn't call that too much mobility, but it is some as well as some CC. So all in all, Ashe is fairly good, fairly reliable. I wouldn't put her above. I'll put her here. I think, these four, I'm toward biased, but these four are pretty good. Especially if you're not doing dive. Like, these two are only S tier just because of how dive has been going. But if it wasn't for dive and these two being like really good, then these four would be taken over, in my opinion. Next up, we have Echo. Definitely a sleeper pick, in my opinion. Echo is extremely versatile. The ability to transform into anybody on the field is a very strong ultimate to have. Echo has extremely high damage potential. The beam is slept on, especially with the new HP, everyone getting more HP. The ability to do like double damage on people who are below 50% health or whatever the numbers are, like that's extremely strong, extremely useful. The character is highly mobile as well, and again, it's a hybrid flyer and not like Echo has the ability to fly, but you don't have to all the time. Unlike Pharah, which if you're not really in the sky, then you're kind of not playing far to her fullest capabilities. Echo doesn't really have to do that. The only negative thing I will say is that it was when Echo first came out extremely fun to change into the tank, but now they made it to where you don't get the health of the tank, and when you are in that situation, you kind of fall into this whole Bastion situation of you're a tank with DPS health, and the reason tanks have so much health is because they're the biggest targets and they need that. So you really have limited Echo's ability to transform into tanks and make plays from that perspective by nerfing the health that they gain. So Echo will be bottom of A. Definitely a sleeper pick, but fun, reliable. You can make a lot of plays, and yeah, leave it there. Next up for the DPS category, we have Sojourn. Sojourn's always been a little nutty to me, and She continues to be a little nutty to me. Sojourn has, well, not great, but good mobility, great damage and kill potential, and a lot of that also comes from her ultimate, which I think is a pretty great ultimate. Only caveat being you need to be able to aim, but even now with the projectile size increase, I don't think it's as demanding as it used to be. And like I'll discuss when we get to Mercy, I do find, once again, as many of the hit scans are, Sojourn to be very oppressive with a Mercy, and I can't seem to get a game where Mercy's not involved with a hit scan one way or another. But taking Mercy out of the equation, I find Sojourn way better than Soldier. As far as specific spot goes, again, I'm Tor biased, but I can even say that she outperforms all of these A tier DPS that I have. So I'm gonna put Soldier in bottom of S. Definitely the best hit scan right now, and would be probably the number one picked, if not top three picked, if not for Tracer and Sombra being Hive in this dive meta. Alright, next up for the DPS we have Venture. I have not played too much of Venture. I played a few games as them, and I heard a lot of people either think that Venture is broken or underperforming or whatever. I think that they are a pretty mid character. Nothing too wild about them. They are a fun character. In terms of placement, though, I don't find Venture to be like an A tier pick, but I'll put Venture top of B. I have no problem doing that. So Venture will be top of B. Reasoning behind it: the ultimate's fun. The ultimate's strong. The ability to travel underground is a very unique mechanic, new to Overwatch. Also extremely fun. Venture does have the ability to CC and push people. They do have a sort of one-hit combo. It's kind of wonky. When you don't have any of your abilities, you do feel like a sitting duck. A lot of people have been relating Venture to like DPS Doomfist, which I definitely can see the correlation. You get the slight self-sustain and the fact that you get shields every time you use an ability. So I mean, they're a pretty mid character. It definitely would have been a character easy to overtune and undertune. I think they did pretty decent at balancing Venture fairly well. So yeah, I'll keep Venture top of B. Alright, last little chunk, we got the support characters. First we got Lifeweaver. Lifeweaver is a can't miss healer, can't miss support. Healing is extremely strong. You have the ability to dash, pedal platform. Those give you mobility, self-sustain, which is, just every support at this point. Lifeweaver has pretty fair damage. It's easy to hit the shots. My only thing is Lifeweaver feels pretty boring. A lot of things in his kit keep getting buffed for some reason. I don't know. I don't find him to be completely broken. I don't find him to be underperforming. He's just a pretty decent pick. So in terms of healer or supports go, he supports his team fairly well. His ultimate's fairly well. It's weird, but I'm gonna put Lifeweaver in A tier. Next up we got Iliari, however you want to pronounce it. Just off the top of my head, initial thoughts: strong healing. I think it's pretty strong. It's not like you can't keep it. It's low uptime, right? Low uptime, but those plus, you have a second support, so I think the healing output that Ilari gives is pretty high and good. Damage capabilities is also good. There are times you might win a one-on-one, you might lose. You're a support, so you shouldn't be overly winning, but Ilari can stand on their own. Slight mobility, you can push people away, so you have some CC, but you also can elevate yourself when you use that ability. And then the ultimate is a very good playmaker. You are kind of a huge target. It's easy to like absorb or eat or whatever, but the playmaking potential of that ultimate is highly strong as well. So I don't think Ilari is too bad. I have Ilari in B tier. Lucio. He's been strong in the past. I don't think he's dropped too much. Just everyone else has been getting pretty strong. His healing still low, but that's not why you pick Lucio. Good self-sustain, great self-sustain at that. Very, very good mobility. He enables his team really well, especially with speed boost. A very great defensive style ultimate, which also could be used offensively. Arguably one of the best support ultimates in the game right now.
His damage has gotten better. It's a lot more fun and easy to secure kills and get kills with his ultimate or with his damage. Sorry, and then Boop. Boop is fun, so he has CC, and he is a presence on certain maps, so that's always fun to have. And I guess if you're looking for that type of character within the support role. But for now, I will put him in B above Ilari. And now we've reached the promised land, Mercy. Man, oh man, do I have things to say about Mercy. I'll get the easy stuff out of the way. Her hitbox is small. It's very easy to live and survive as Mercy. I don't care who says otherwise. In Metal Ranks, people don't seem to target Mercies. There was a day where I played and I literally just, outside of myself, I paid attention to who shot at Mercy. And you could play Mercy in the low ranks and not get more than 2 deaths because nobody shoots you. Like if you get a death, it's because of an ultimate or a Bob or a Diva bomb or something stupid like that. But you could go full games without even getting touched, and it blows my mind. Mercy's ultimate, I said it was strong, but I can understand. Like it's all right. That's not my problem with Mercy, but the ultimate is it's a good support ultimate, good supportive ultimate. Res will always be amazing. The ability to bring somebody back who's died, that will always be strong, and you can pull that off, behind cover and while ulting, and you can do some pretty cool stuff while doing that. Now, my major issue with Mercy is blooping. I don't know if people have just stopped caring, or I don't know if people just stopped playing Mercy in the high ranks to where nobody's talking about it, but in Diamond and I'm assuming below, like if they have a hit scan, whether it's Sojourn, Ashe, Soldier, Echo, even Pharah, and they have a Mercy, if you don't pick Mercy, you will lose. You're throwing. You have to counter that because the damage potential of those characters is insane. When you add a Mercy to the mix, a lot of these DPS characters and tanks bump up a tier. Like she's nutty with Orisa. She's even more nutty with Malga. It gets crazy when she's boosting people. So like I'm not gonna put her S tier, but I definitely personally do find Mercy to be an A tier support. Nearing the end of this list, we have Ana. A lot of people have been saying Ana has been feeling pretty weak, and that is solely because she has 0 mobility. You have no chance of running or escaping from anybody. You are pretty dependent on your DPS and other support and the tank, your teammates to peel to help you out. When you pick Ana, you are, especially after this HP boost, you are definitely the target for a lot of flankers and dives. With that being said, she has arguably the strongest stun in the game. The ability to sleep. Nade is still pretty good. Boost healing on your teammates and negates your the enemies from being able to be healed. You can also use it on yourself. Don't recommend you use it that way, but it's an option. She has pretty good healing. It's just after the HP boost, it does feel a little. It feels less, but it's not necessarily less. It's just you have more to heal, which means you need to hit more shots, which means your skill. You need to have the skill in order to do that. Damaging, it takes like an entire shot to kill people who she could kill in 3, so it takes 4 now. And then her ultimate synchronizes extremely well with a lot, if not everybody. So while I don't find her to be incredibly strong like I have in the past, she's not by any means weak. She's not a sleeper pick. She's pretty basic. She's stronger than, I would say, Lucio and Ilari. So for as supports go, top of B tier. Following on, we have Zenyatta. At this point in time, you're going to be challenged if you play Zenyatta. Aside of Ana, you are the most likely to be picked if they run dive or if they flank or anything like that. His healing's low, but it's not necessarily why you pick Zenyatta. I think Volley's still strong. It essentially is a one-shot if you hit him correctly. Snap Kick still pushes back, so we have some sort of CC on people that are pushing him. His ultimate's still really strong unless someone's naded. The only issues, he has no mobility, so like I said, you're going to be focused, and I find Disorb to be an issue still. I know it's rare that it's done, but when people run Mercy Zen, those games are wild. There is nothing I played games where people were running Malga Mercy Zen, And as a tank, getting a damage boosted Malga while being discorded myself, I've never experienced something more crazy than that. So while I don't find him to be strong, I don't really find him to be weak either. I wouldn't even go so far as to say he's a C tier pick. Definitely B, and I will put him below Lucio and above Ilari. Next up we have Moira. No surprise here. All good things to say about Moira. Good mobility, good DPS, good healing, good ultimate, good. Moira absolutely has utility. People keep saying she does it. I don't understand that. She absolutely has utility. Like, you can fade when ulting. You could flank. It's not even the fact that she can fade. The fade is on such a crazy cooldown. You could do the wildest stuff and get it back and get out of situations. She's just strong all around. Strong self-sustain. Just a nutty pick right now. And for that, I mean, she's the S tier. Could not put her anywhere else. Next up we have Brig. I don't play a lot of Brig, but also would be blind to the fact and ignorant if I said she was bad. She is not. Inspire is a strong way to heal. I agree with a lot of takes where there needs to be a better visual effect as far as her healing goes, especially when she ults. Her ultimate is insanely strong. The ability to stun with shield bash is wild. Mace is or whiplash, whip shot, whatever it's called, wild. So she has CC stun. Only thing I will say is she's pretty weak against poke. And I mean, a lot of hit scanner being played when dive's not being played. So she's weak against soldier, Ashe, Sojourn, these people who want to keep you at a distance because she has to close the gap in order to provoke her inspire and whatnot. So when she's not able to do that, she doesn't really do too much. I mean, she has repair packs, but fundamentally, I really don't understand them even to this day, so I can't really speak too much on them. All in all, though, I'd be blind and stupid to say she's a bad pick. She's not. I would put her bottom of A, top of B, just because B is a little crowded right now. We'll go ahead and put her. Damn, is she better than Lifeweaver? We'll go ahead and put her below Lifeweaver, just because Lifeweaver fits better into what's being played. Alright, next up we got Baptiste. Baptiste has been a strong pick for a very long time now. With a lot of the changes coming in, I believe, Season 9, he has kind of lost a bit of his power, I'll say. But he also has, I mean, he's retained most of it, though, so I guess he's lost some of the power, but he's retained most of it. He has strong self-sustain. Lamp will always be crazy and hard to balance, but Lamp is good. He has good mobility in the fact that he jumps, vertically. He can reach high places. Little fun fact, I've noticed that when you jump, when Bastion ults on top of you and you jump up, you avoid that damage. And he is a poke type character, and I personally like poke. I think poke is really fun to do, but unfortunately the past meta and the current meta and things like that have not been poke. So he struggles a bit into dive and rush and things like that. He's still playable, but it's just not as strong as some other picks. Everything's said and done, I'll put him above Brig. And lastly, we come to Kiriko. Now, for some reason, she has a very low win rate. I can understand that, and I can understand why. That does not change the fact that she still is a completely broken character. Kiriko is overkitted like no other. I mean, Suzu alone does 5 different things. It cleanses, it heals, it makes you intangible. It does so much in just one button. It's wild. Makes you invulnerable. Kiriko is highly mobile. She can teleport through walls, climb walls. So in that, she's highly survivable. She has high healing, which essentially you shouldn't necessarily miss. And she has one of the strongest ults in the support role. So, I mean, and don't even get me started on the damage. Like I said, the damage, after all the HP has been boosted, the damage isn't as oppressive feeling as it used to be, but she still has the ability to duel a lot of the DPS and win that fight. So, Kiriko absolutely still is S tier, and I would put her above even Moira. And yeah. Alright everyone, thank you for making it to this point of the video. This is the end. This is my tier list. Looking at it, I'm not too upset. It's all of my opinion. I am in Diamond, so it's a Diamond perspective. What I will say is, going in the future, I'm probably going to break it up into categories, so a DPS, tank, and support video, because this one's longer than I would have liked. Looking at this, it's pretty balanced. It's been a pretty balanced past season. Going into season 10, I expect it to be similar to this. And yeah, I mean, dive is strong. Dive is strong. If your team is playing dive, you can go Winston, and Winston would be up. I mean, it's all subjective. These characters can rise and fall based on your own independent skill level. But like I said, I'm focused on the middle ranks, and this is, I believe, the best. Regardless of if you agree or not, comment down below. Let me know your takes. I appreciate you watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more, and I will catch you guys.